Hello there everyone, I hope you're all doing well. Recently I have been going through all of my things, trying to reorganize some stuff and just feel better in my space. And while I've been doing this, I've been pulling out a bunch of my knickknacks, extra things. I am a stuff person, and in particular I am a big thrift store, flea market, antique shop person. And I realized that the vast majority of the things I use in practice all the time come from places like this, from the thrift store or from flea markets. And so I thought it would be fun to share with you some of the easier finds that you can make at thrift stores and flea markets for building up your toolkit for witchcraft and just practicing in general. Of course, none of these things are super duper necessary. You can practice with the tools that are most interesting to you and what you would prefer to work with. None of it is a must. But a lot of these are very practical and make sense to have on hand depending on how you practice. So thought it would just be kind of fun, and I hope you get some inspiration and ideas. And for those of you that enjoy thrifting or just want to get a good deal while building up your supplies, here are some recommendations. Let's get into it, shall we? Are you gonna be my helper today? So first and foremost, we have baskets. This one was given to me by my mother, so also getting things as gifts from others is helpful, but this one did come from the thrift store. And this I use all the time when drying herbs. It still has some dried dandelion or calendula in here currently. Baskets are one of my favorite things to have. I don't think you could ever have too many. I use them to dry herbs, as I said, to gather plants outside, to store jars and containers, and just a million different uses. I almost always have them at my disposal. I know whenever I'm going outside, if I'm going on an adventure or anything, I bring them with me. Usually this guy. So you can find them in all sorts of different sizes and styles. People usually just get rid of them because they don't need them or want them anymore. And they really have so many different uses. If you're somebody who follows a more green path, they are so great to have on hand for harvesting and drying, or just as organizers. So baskets are my number one go-to. I always find one that I want, and they're always a pretty good price in those places. Next is a little bit strange maybe, but it's something that I see all the time and it's super affordable. But next up are candles. Often you can find ones that look a little funny, so these have some red stains on them, but otherwise they're unused. Or people will bring used candles to thrift stores, and I still think even if they're a little bit used, they're still fine. Give them a little cleanse before working with them again. They're super inexpensive, usually just for a couple of cents, if that, and they're all over the place. So you can often find really big pillar candles or things that you maybe wouldn't normally expect to buy inexpensively. It is a little strange, it's a little funny to find the pile of used candles, but they are something that I use a lot in practice. I know most of us do, and they're a great find whenever you come across them. Next, we get up to some even more practical things. Often you can find general metal tools. These are two of my favorites. A candle snuffer. I find that it is far more respectful to put out a flame this way. This one's copper and beautiful, and was just once loved, and now I get to give it a second life. And of course, my favorite are these iron shears. These I've used for ages. They are my favorite for harvesting, and some of my favorites depending on the working that I'm doing to cut up herbs and plants and all sorts of things. These can be harder to come by, but I do see them fairly regularly, and I just really enjoy finding something that has already been loved and used, and they are just truly so great for harvesting. So if this is something you're looking for, they are not too terribly expensive new, but they are much cheaper, not new. The next thing that I always find that I absolutely adore are jars. A super useful component when it comes to crafting, whether you're making spell jars, looking for a place to house ingredients, or just a place to concoct things in. Jars are some of my favorites. Often people discard old spice jars, and they are just without the label, but they're super cute, always with a beautiful lid. Or people get rid of their canning jars. Often I find whole sets of big canning jars from probably older relatives and things like that. People just don't know what to do with all of the glass jars. Sometimes also you'll find some really neat ones, like the blue ones. I only have a handful of these in my collection of crazy amounts of jars, but they're there sometimes. Can never have enough jars in my opinion. I will always buy them when I see them, and every size is available in these places. So always keep your eyes peeled for jars, especially if you want a bunch of them for a couple bucks. Now, this last one is a bit of a rarer find, but so far I have found 3 without looking for them, all accidental finds, and I'm sure there have been more that I just overlooked, and at this point I'm really not looking for them because I do have 3. But occasionally you can find cast iron cauldrons, which are super useful for burning candles in. I like to use them when I'm doing bowl spells. Burning incense is also great. Or when I'm burning an herb bundle, I'll often place the bundle into a cauldron to let it finish up its burn. They're super useful if you are anybody who works with fire semi-regularly or just at all. They create a very safe space for that kind of working. And they also just are very aesthetically pleasing in my opinion. Like I said, they are a bit of a rarer find. You are gonna have to do some searching, but they do pop up every now and again, and they are very useful when they do come. And so with that, these are the top practical witchy things you can find in thrift stores and my recommendations to keep your eyes peeled for when you're out shopping around in those places. At the end of the day, to build up a practice, you don't need a ton of tools or a ton of things. You just need things that make sense to you. Honestly, you can work with whatever you have on hand in your home, but if you want to build up a supply of things that are specific to your practice, the thrift store is a great place to go, especially if you're on a budget. So thank you so much for watching. If you can and would like to, I'd really appreciate it if you checked out my Patreon. There I share art, herbal profiles, book recommendations, and monthly workshops. If you want to see more content from me, I also have another channel where I primarily share vlogs, more details of my day-to-day life, far more herbalism and magic and all that good stuff. So if either of those sound interesting, they'll both be linked down below. Thanks again for watching, and I can't wait to see you again soon. Bye. Oh, it's hot.